The stars looked different from this far out. Hana had been flying alone for 6 days now, and the familiar constellations of human space were long gone. Her ship, the Wraith's Edge, cut through the darkness without a sound. No engine glow. No heat signature. Nothing that would tell anyone she was there. She checked her scanner again. Still nothing. The Drathine Collective had 12 colony worlds in this sector. All of them went silent 3 weeks ago. Just stopped talking. The Galactic Coalition sent 5 investigation teams. None of them came back. Hana was the 6th attempt. The difference was that nobody expected her to return either. Her communications panel blinked. She tapped it, and Ambassador Deho's face appeared on the small screen. He looked tired. He always looked tired these days. "Phantom, this is your last chance to turn back," he said. His voice was quiet. "The Coalition has written off this entire sector. They're calling it a loss." "Understood," Hana replied. She didn't use his name. Ghost Protocol pilots never used names, not even their commanders. It was cleaner that way. "The other species think we're crazy for sending you," Deho continued. "They say humans are too eager to die." "Maybe we are," Hana said. She adjusted her course slightly, aiming for the Drathine home world. "But someone needs to find out what happened to them." Deho was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Your mission is reconnaissance only. Get in, see what you can, plant the drones, and get out. Do not engage. Do not attempt rescue. Just information. Acknowledged?" "And Phantom?" Deho's expression softened just slightly. "Come home." The transmission ended. Hana sat in the darkness of her cockpit and wondered if she would keep that promise. She had been a Ghost Protocol pilot for 3 years. In that time, she had flown 47 missions. 47 times into places where the Coalition refused to go. She had lost count of how many times she should have died. The Ghost Protocol was humanity's answer to a simple problem. When humans joined the Galactic Coalition 5 years ago, they were nobody. A young species with no special abilities. No natural armor like the Krell. No telepathy like the Mindari. No 1,000-year lifespans like the Eternals. Just humans, with their short lives and soft bodies and stubborn refusal to quit. So humanity created the Ghosts. Volunteers who agreed to have their identities completely erased. No birth records. No family ties. No names. Just call signs and missions. When the galaxy needed someone to do the impossible, they sent the Ghosts. Because if you didn't officially exist, your death didn't officially matter. Hana had been someone else once. She had a name, a family, a home planet. She gave it all up the day she walked into the Ghost Protocol recruitment office. She remembered the officer who processed her application. He had asked her why she wanted to do this. She told him the truth, because someone had to. The Wraith's Edge began its approach to the Drathine home world. Hana powered down every system she could. Life support to minimum. Sensors to passive only. She drifted more than flew, using the planet's gravity to pull her in. The first thing she noticed was the silence. The Drathine were a talkative species. Their cities hummed with constant communication. Music, conversation, the 1,000 small sounds of a living civilization. Now there was nothing. The second thing she noticed was the smell. Even through her ship's filters, she could detect it. Something organic. Something wrong. As she entered the atmosphere, Hana activated her visual scanners. What she saw made her stomach turn. The cities were still there, but they were different. Massive organic structures had grown over everything. They looked like tumors, if tumors could be the size of buildings. They pulsed with a sick yellow light, and they were moving, growing, spreading across the planet's surface like a disease. Hana kept her ship low, skimming just above the treetops. She didn't know if whatever had done this could detect her, but she wasn't taking chances. She approached the capital city carefully. The structures were everywhere. They had consumed entire districts. As she watched, one of them split open, and things came out. She enhanced the image and immediately wished she hadn't. They looked like the Drathing. Same basic shape, same height. But they moved wrong. Their limbs bent at angles that shouldn't be possible. Their skin had turned gray and translucent. She could see things moving underneath. And their eyes were empty. "What are you?" Hannah whispered to herself. She circled the city twice, recording everything. Her ship's computer analyzed the structures. The results made no sense. They were organic, yes, but the DNA was chaos. Fragments from thousands of different species, all mixed together. It was like someone had taken every living thing they could find and blended it into something new. Hannah deployed her reconnaissance drones. Small, silent machines that would hide in the ruins and continue gathering data after she left, if she left. She was about to turn back when her scanner screamed a warning. Something was coming toward her. Fast. She punched her engines to full power and dove. Behind her, the sky filled with flying things. They looked like organic ships, if ships could be grown instead of built. They moved like a swarm of insects, but each one was the size of her fighter. The Wraith's edge was fast. Hannah had modified it herself over 3 years of missions. But these things were faster. They closed the distance in seconds. Hannah threw her ship into a roll, then a dive, then a climb. She used every trick she knew. She flew through the narrow spaces between buildings. She used the planet's magnetic field to scramble their tracking. She fired chaff and flares, and every countermeasure she had done. It wasn't enough. One of them hit her port wing. The impact sent her spinning. Alarm screamed. Hull integrity at 40%. She had seconds before they tore her apart. Hannah did the only thing she could think of. She aimed her ship straight down and dove toward the thickest part of the organic structures. At the last second, she pulled up hard. The G-forces crushed her into her seat. Her vision went gray, but she made it through. Most of the swarm didn't. They slammed into the structures and burst apart. The few survivors broke off pursuit. Hannah didn't wait to see why. She pointed her ship toward space and ran. It took her 2 hours to reach safe distance. By then, her hands had stopped shaking. Barely. She activated her long-range transmitter and sent the compressed data burst back to Coalition headquarters. Everything she had seen. Everything her drones recorded. And a simple message. Phantom to Coalition Command. Contact confirmed. Drathing Collective is gone. Hostile force identified. Uploading full reconnaissance data. This is an extinction-level threat. Send everything you have. Phantom out. She sat in her damaged ship and stared at the stars. Behind her, the Drathing home world continued its silent scream. And somewhere in the darkness, the things that had destroyed it were spreading. The Coalition war room was built to impress. It sat at the center of the Nexus station, a massive structure where representatives from 200 species gathered to discuss the fate of the galaxy. Today, every seat was filled. Ambassador Deho stood at the center podium and watched the holographic display rotate above him. It showed Hannah's reconnaissance data, the organic structures, the twisted bodies of the Drathing, the swarm. The room was completely silent. Finally, the Krell war chief Taken spoke. His voice rumbled like grinding stones. "What are we looking at?" "The Vorum," said Mindari scholar Vera. She was old, even by Mindari standards. Her telepathic abilities let her access records most species had forgotten. They were recorded in precursor archives 10,000 years ago. A parasitic species that spreads by consuming and assimilating other life forms. They destroyed the precursor civilization and then went dormant. And now they're awake, Deho said. Another hologram appeared. This one showed the expansion pattern. Red zones spread across the star map like blood in water. 12 Drathine worlds. 4 unaffiliated colonies. 2 research stations. All gone in 3 weeks. At current expansion rate, Deo continued, the Vurm will reach Coalition outer territories in 6 months. Core worlds in 2 years. How do we fight them? Asked the Chither representative. Her translator rendered her clicking sounds into flat words. We don't, said Fleet Admiral Grath. He was an Eternal, one of the long-lived species who had built the Coalition. We retreat, fortify the core systems, abandon everything else. The room erupted. Representatives shouted in a dozen languages. The translator struggled to keep up. Deho let it continue for a moment, then raised his hand. There's another option, he said. The room quieted. Admiral Grath stared at him. What option? Deho brought up new data. The Vorum spread through hive nodes, large structures that coordinate the swarm. If we destroy these nodes, we slow their expansion. Buy time for evacuation. Save lives. Impossible, Grath said. The swarm density around those nodes is absolute. Nothing could get through. One pilot already did, Deho said quietly. He played Hannah's flight data. The room watched as her ship dove through the swarm, dodged, rolled, and somehow survived. The maneuvers were insane. They violated a dozen principles of safe flying, but they worked. This pilot got lucky, Grath said. Once. This pilot has completed 47 deep reconnaissance missions, Dayao replied. She didn't get lucky. She's just that good. One pilot cannot stop an invasion. No, Dayao agreed, but humanity has 37 pilots like her. We call them the Ghost Protocol. The room stirred. Most species had heard rumors about the ghosts. Crazy humans who took suicide missions. Nobody really believed they existed. You're proposing to send your pilots to die, said Vera. Her mental voice carried sadness. That's barbaric. We're proposing to let them choose, Deho said. Every ghost is a volunteer. They know the risks. And right now, they're the only chance those civilian populations have. The debate lasted 3 hours. In the end, the Coalition agreed to let humanity try. They had nothing to lose. If the ghost pilots wanted to throw their lives away, at least it might buy some time. Hannah heard about the decision while she was in the medical bay. The doctors had checked her over after the Drathine mission. Cracked ribs from the D-forces. Minor internal bleeding. Nothing that wouldn't heal. She was cleared for flight in 48 hours. Deho visited her that evening. He stood in the doorway of her small room and looked at her for a long moment. Sethi's Prime, he said finally. Drathine agricultural world. Population of 2 million. Vorum hive node confirmed. Coalition wants it destroyed. I'll need the Wraith's Edge repaired, Hannah said. Already done. Plus a few upgrades. New weapons. Better shields. Coalition technology. He paused. They're giving you a 0.003% chance of survival. That's higher than usual, Hannah said. Deho didn't smile. Why do you do this? It was the first time anyone had asked her that. Not in recruitment. Not in training. Not in 3 years of missions. Hannah thought about it. Because I can, she said. And because if I don't, who will? The flight to Sethi's Prime took 3 days. Hannah used the time to study the target. The hive node was massive. It sat in the middle of what used to be the planet's largest city. The swarm around it was so dense that long-range sensors couldn't see through. Her mission was simple. Fly through the swarm. Deploy the plasma lance weapon into the hive's core. Escape before detonation. 7 steps. Any one of them could kill her. Coalition military channels watched as she made her approach. Word had spread. This was the human who survived the first encounter. Now she was going back. Thousands of officers from dozens of species monitored their screens. Hana entered the system and immediately went dark. No engines. No emissions. Just momentum and gravity. She drifted towards Sethi's prime like a piece of debris. The swarm detected her anyway. They came at her in waves. Millions of Voron flyers moving like schools of fish. Hana lit her engines and dove into them. What happened next became required viewing at every Coalition Military Academy. Hana flew like nothing they had ever seen. She used the planet's atmosphere to skip like a stone on water. She whipped around debris fields, using gravity to slingshot her ship forward. When the swarm got too close, she jumped. Micro wormholes that lasted only seconds. Unstable. Dangerous. Lethal to most pilots. She threaded through spaces too small for her ship. She made turns that should have torn the Wraith's edge apart. She pushed the engines past their limits until they screamed. The G-forces hit 8, 9, 10. Most species would have blacked out. Hana's vision grayed at the edges, but she kept flying. It took 7 hours. 7 hours of constant movement. 7 hours where a single mistake meant death. The Coalition channels stayed silent. Nobody could think of anything to say. Hana reached the hive node. She deployed the plasma lance. The weapon drilled into the organic structure and buried itself deep. Hana didn't wait to see if it worked. She turned and ran. The detonation lit up the planet's surface. The hive node erupted in a column of fire that reached into space. The swarm went mad. They chased her. She led them into Cephas Prime's moon, using its canyons to break up their formation. When she emerged on the other side, half the swarm was gone. Hana made it to safe distance with her hull integrity at 12%. One engine was dead. Her shields were gone. Life support was failing. But she was alive. The transmission she sent was simple. Phantom to Coalition Command. Hive node destroyed. Returning to base. The Coalition channels erupted. Officers who had called the mission impossible were silent. The Krell, warriors who respected strength above all else, began discussing this nameless human pilot. The Chither, who valued efficiency, analyzed her flight patterns. And in quiet conversations across 100 worlds, aliens who had dismissed humanity as weak began to reconsider. Deho met her when she returned. The Wraith's edge limped into the docking bay, more wreck than ship. Hana climbed out slowly. Her flight suit was soaked with sweat and blood from where her restraints had cut into her. 17 more hive nodes confirmed, Deho said. Coalition wants them all destroyed. Hana nodded. How many ghosts are deploying? All of them. She looked at him, saw the weight he carried. 37 pilots. 37 people whose names he had erased, whose deaths would be his responsibility. We knew what we signed up for, Hana said quietly. I know, Deho replied. That doesn't make it easier. Over the next 3 months, the Ghost Protocol flew mission after mission. Hive nodes burned across the quarantine zone. Civilian evacuations succeeded because the ghosts bought them time. But the cost was terrible. 21 ghosts didn't come home. 21 call signs that would never be heard again. And through it all, one call sign kept appearing in mission reports. Phantom, the first. Ghost, the one who showed them all how it was done. The call came at 0400 hours. Hana was already awake. She had stopped sleeping properly weeks ago. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the Vorum, the swarm, the twisted bodies of people they had consumed. Phantom, you're needed in briefing room 7, the voice said through her communications panel. She dressed quickly and made her way through the Nexus Station's corridors. Other ghosts passed her. They nodded but didn't speak. There were 16 of them left now. 16 out of 37. The math was getting harder to ignore. Ambassador Deo was waiting in the briefing room. He looked worse than usual. His eyes were red. His hands shook slightly as he pulled up the tactical display. Chither breeding colonies, he said without preamble. 3 worlds. Population of 4 billion. Mostly children. The Vorum are 3 days out. Hana studied the display. The Chither were insectoid, and they bred in massive numbers. Their colonies were heavily populated, but lightly defended. The species believed in overwhelming reproduction rather than military strength. How many hive nodes? She asked. 2 confirmed. Possibly 3. Gaiho brought up more data. Coalition fleet is engaged on the other side of the sector. They can't get there in time, so send the ghosts. I'm sending 4, Deo said. You, Reaper, Eclipse, and Blade, destroy the hive nodes. Buy time for evacuation. Reaper was the closest thing Hana had to a friend. They had flown together on 6 missions. Saved each other's lives twice. She had never seen his face. Never heard his real name. But she trusted him. The flight to the Chither colonies took 2 days. 4 ghost ships flying in loose formation. They didn't talk much. What was there to say? They all knew the odds. When they arrived, the situation was worse than expected. The Vorum swarm had already reached the first colony. The organic structures were growing across the surface. Millions of Chither were fleeing to evacuation ships. 3 hive nodes, Hana said, studying her scanner. They split up. We take them together, Reaper's voice came over the comm. His accent was strange. European, maybe. Hana had never asked. 2 ships per node. Negative, Hana said. 3 ships on the largest node. 1 on cleanup. We need to stop the main force. That leaves 1 pilot alone, Eclipse said. She sounded young. Hana wondered how old she really was. 20? 25? I'll take the solo node, Hana said. You 3 hit the main target. Phantom, that's suicide, Blade said. So is everything we do, Hana replied. Execute the plan. They split up. Hana watched the other 3 ships dive toward the largest hive node. Then she turned toward her target. It was smaller than the others, but still massive. The swarm around it was thick. She had done this 17 times now. Every time, she learned something new. The Vorum were adapting. They moved differently, responded faster. They were learning to hunt ghost pilots. Specifically, Hana entered the swarm and immediately knew something was wrong. They weren't scattering like usual. They were coordinating, hurting her, pushing her toward something. She saw it too late. A new type of Vorum, larger than the others, faster. It came at her from below and hit her ship hard, enough to crack her cockpit canopy. Alarm screamed. Atmosphere venting. Hull breach in 3 places. Hana fought for control as her ship spun. The large Vorum circled for another attack. Behind it, thousands more of its kind emerged from the hive node. Contact, Hana said into her comm. Her voice was steady despite the chaos. New Vorum strain. Hunter class. All ghosts be advised. She didn't wait for the hunter to attack again. She fired her main weapon straight into its center mass. The creature exploded, but 10 more took its place. Hana ran. Not toward safety, toward the hive node. She pushed her damaged ship faster. The hunters followed. Good. She needed them close. The plasma lance deployed from her ship's belly. Hana armed it manually. The weapon was meant to be fired from a distance. But she didn't have distance. She had seconds. She flew straight into the hive node's outer membrane. The organic structure tore at her ship. Sensors failed. Shields collapsed. The hunters were right behind her. Hana released the plasma lance and fired her engines at maximum. The Wraith's edge shot forward. Behind her, the lance detonated. The explosion was massive. It consumed the hive node and everything around it. Hana's ship caught the edge of the blast. It threw her forward like a toy. She tumbled through space, systems failing, hull breaking apart. When she finally stopped spinning, half her ship was gone. Hana hung in her restraints and laughed. It was a broken sound. She was alive. Somehow, impossibly, she was alive. Phantom to all ships, she said. No destroyed. Status report. Silence. Reaper, respond. More silence. Then Eclipse's voice, shaking. Reaper's gone. He took a direct hit from the hunter's string. Bought us time to plant the weapon. Hana closed her eyes. Reaper, the pilot who had helped her through her first mission, who had taught her half the tricks she knew. Blade and I destroyed the main node, Eclipse continued. Evacuations are proceeding. We won, Hana repeated. The words felt hollow. She managed to limp her ship back to the Nexus station. It took 3 days. When she arrived, she went straight to Ambassador Deho's office. She didn't knock. Deho looked up from his desk. He saw her expression and immediately stood. Reaper, she said. I know. How many more? Hana asked. How many more of us are you going to sacrifice? Deho was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked around his desk and stood in front of her. He was shorter than her, older, tired in a way that went beyond lack of sleep. Do you know why we erase your names? He asked. To make us expendable. No, Deho shook his head. We erase your names so the galaxy will judge us by your deeds, not your origins. You're not nameless because you don't matter. You're nameless because what you do matters more. Hana stared at him. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to help you understand, Deho said. Every species in the coalition has advantages. The Krell are strong. The Mindari are telepathic. The Eternals live forever. You want to know what humanity's advantage is? What? We choose to care, Deho said. Those Chither children. 4 billion of them. The coalition was ready to write them off. Call them acceptable losses. But you flew into hell to save them. Not because you had to. Because you chose to. And Reaper died for that choice. Yes, Deho said. And he knew he might. Just like you know. Just like all the ghosts know. You volunteered for this. Hana sat down heavily. Her body ached. Her ship was destroyed. One of her few friends was dead. And the war wasn't over. There's more, isn't there? She asked. Deho nodded. Coalition leadership called an emergency session. They want to present something to you. The coalition chamber was even more crowded than before. Representatives from every major species. Military commanders. Scientists. They all turned to watch as Hana entered. She was still in her flight suit. Still covered in grime and blood. Admiral Grath spoke first. Lieutenant Phantom. The coalition wishes to acknowledge the sacrifices made by humanity's Ghost Protocol. Your missions have saved billions of lives. Hana said nothing. She had learned not to trust official praise. Then Chither War Queen Silas's stood. She was massive, even for her species. Her carapace was scarred from 1,000 battles. She looked at Hana for a long moment, then performed a gesture Hana had never seen before. All of Silas's limbs crossed over her chest in a complex pattern. This is our highest honor, Silas said through her translator, given only to warriors who save our children. The Chither will follow humanity's lead in this war. Where Ghost Protocol flies, we will follow. One by one, other species stood. The Krell, the Mindari. even the Eternals. Each pledged their support, not to the Coalition, to humanity. Daiho stood beside Hana and whispered, "The galaxy is watching. They're not seeing weakness anymore." Hana thought about Reaper, about the 20 other ghosts who hadn't come home, about the 16 who remained. "Then they better be ready," she said quietly, "because we're not done yet." That night, Coalition intelligence confirmed what everyone feared. The Vorum had a central hive mind, a nexus hidden in the dark space between galaxies. If they could destroy it, the entire Vorum species would collapse, but reaching it would require flying through defenses that made everything else look easy. It was a one-way mission, even by Ghost Protocol standards. When Daiho called for volunteers, every remaining ghost raised their hand. Hana raised hers first. The simulation ran for the 40th time. 40 different ghost pilots, 40 different approaches. Every single one ended in failure. Hana stood in the observation room and watched the holographic display. The Vorum Nexus sat in a region of space where normal physics broke down. Quantum instabilities made sensors useless. Navigation was more guesswork than science. And the defenses were absolute. "It's impossible," Eclipse said beside her. She had run the simulation 12 times herself. "Even if we get through the swarm, even if we survive the quantum effects, we can't place the payload fast enough. Then we make it possible," Hana said. Ambassador Daiho entered the room. Behind him came engineers from every Coalition species. Krell, Cheether, Mindari, even 2 Eternals, which was rare. They looked at the assembled ghosts with something like respect. "We've been authorized to build you a ship," Daiho said. "The best technology the Coalition has. Every species contributing. Whatever you need to complete this mission." The lead engineer, a Krell named Corvus, pulled up blueprints. Krell plasma drives for speed. Cheether bio armor that regenerates. Mindari neural interface for faster reactions. Drathine medical systems to keep you alive through extreme conditions. And human quantum processors for navigation. "How long to build it?" Hana asked. 3 weeks. Maybe 4. "We have 2, Daiho said. "The Vorum are spreading faster. If we wait too long, they'll reach population centers we can't evacuate." Corvus looked at the other engineers. They had a silent conversation that lasted seconds. Then he nodded. 2 weeks. We'll work around the clock." They did. Hana spent those 2 weeks in the shipyard, watching her new vessel take shape. The Wraith's Edge had been destroyed in the Cheether mission. This ship was something different. Something built specifically to die completing one mission. She didn't have a name for it yet. The Coalition sent visitors during construction. Survivors from the worlds the ghosts had saved. Soldiers who had fought alongside them. Families of the fallen. They came in hundreds, then thousands. They left tokens and prayers and small gifts. A Drathine child gave Hana a holographic projector. It showed the child's family, smiling and alive. "You saved us," the child said through a translator. "When you went to Sethi's Prime, you gave us time to escape." Hana took the projector. She didn't know what to say. She had never thought about the faces behind the numbers, the billions of lives saved. She had just focused on the missions. "Thank you," she finally said. The child hugged her. It was awkward. The Drathine had 4 arms, and they didn't really understand human personal space. But it was genuine. After the child left, Hana sat alone in her quarters and watched the hologram play. Over and over. The family laughing. The parents holding their child. All of them alive because she had flown through a swarm and planted a weapon. She kept the projector. It was the only personal item she owned. On the 13th day, Eclipse found Hana in the shipyard. The younger ghost looked nervous. I've been thinking, Eclipse said, about the mission, about the odds. Don't, Hana said. We're all going to volunteer, Eclipse continued. All 16 of us. But only one ship can go. That's what the simulations show. Only a small single pilot ship has any chance of getting through undetected. I know. You're going to volunteer, Eclipse said. It wasn't a question. Hana looked at the ship taking shape. The hull was almost complete. The engines were being installed. It was beautiful in a deadly way. Built for one purpose. Someone has to, Hana said. Why does it have to be you? Hana thought about that. She thought about Reaper and the 20 others who hadn't come home. She thought about the Drathian child and the billions like them. She thought about her real name, the one she had given up 3 years ago. Because I'm good at this, she said finally. And because if I don't, I'll have to watch one of you go instead. Eclipse was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You know we'll all remember you. The ghosts. We might not have names, but we remember each other. That's enough, Hana said. The ship was completed in 14 days. The engineers had worked miracles. Every system was optimized. Every component was perfect. It was the most advanced vessel ever built. And it was built to be flown once. The naming ceremony was small. Just Daeho, the remaining ghosts, and a few coalition officials. Hana stood before her ship and realized she had never named anything before. Phantom's last flight, she said. Simple, direct, true. Daeho approached her privately after the ceremony. He held a data pad. Your mission profile, he said. Everything we know about the Nexus. Everything we think might help. It's not much. It never is, Hana said. She took the pad. There's something else. Daeho hesitated. This mission. It's one way. You understand that? I understood that before you built the ship. The payload requires manual placement at multiple points inside the Nexus. The timer is too short for remote deployment. Even if everything goes perfectly, you won't have time to reach safe distance. Hana had known this too. The simulations had been clear. The mission wasn't about survival. It was about success. I'm not coming back, she said. It wasn't a question. No, Daeho said. You're not. They stood in silence. Around them, the shipyard continued its endless activity. Ships coming and going. The war continuing. When I joined Ghost Protocol, Hana said, you asked me why. Do you remember? You said because someone had to. I lied. Hana looked at him. I joined because I wanted to matter. I wanted my life to mean something more than just existing. And now it will. Daeho's expression crumbled. He was the one who recruited ghosts, who erased their names, who sent them to die. And he had never gotten used to it. Your name, he said quietly. Your real name. We have it in sealed files. When this is over, would you want it known? Would you want people to remember who you were? Hana thought about the girl she had been. Before Ghost Protocol. Before the missions. She had been nobody special. Just another person in a galaxy full of them. No, she said. Let them remember Phantom. That's who matters. The launch was broadcast across the coalition. Billions watched as Phantom's last flight rose from the Nexus station and turned toward the dark space between galaxies. Hana didn't look back. The journey took 17 days of ship time. But quantum effects meant only hours passed for outside observers. Time broke down this far from normal space. Hana aged, de-aged, stayed the same. The ship's chronometer gave up trying to track it. She talked to the ship's AI during the long hours. It was built using personality matrices from fallen ghost pilots, their last contribution to the war. When she spoke, She heard echoes of Reaper's laugh, Eclipse's determination, Blade's quiet strength. You think this will work? She asked the AI on day 12. Probability of success is estimated at 18%. The AI replied in Reaper's voice. Those are good odds for Ghost Protocol. Yeah, Hannah said. They are. On day 15, she entered the region where space stopped making sense. Stars bent around each other. Light moved in circles. The ship's instruments screened contradictory readings. But the human quantum processors held steady. They didn't try to make sense of it. They just found a path through it. Hannah followed that path into the dark. On day 17, she found the Nexus dot. It was massive beyond comprehension, the size of a small moon. It pulsed with bioluminescence that hurt to look at. Around it, the Voruum swarm moved in patterns too complex to understand. Trillions of them. Maybe more. Hannah went full stealth. Every system shut down except life support and passive sensors. She drifted toward the Nexus like a piece of debris. It took 8 hours. 8 hours of barely breathing. 8 hours of hoping they didn't detect her. They didn't. She reached the Nexus's outer membrane and prepared to deploy the payload. Then she saw the problem. The quantum weapon required precise placement at 7 neural cluster points. The mission plan assumed she could use the ship's weapons from a distance, but the swarm was too dense. Any active system would be detected instantly. Manual deployment was the only option, and her suit's power supply gave her 40 minutes. The cluster points were 3 hours apart. Hannah looked at the timer, at the swarm, at the impossible distance. Then she smiled. It was a tired smile. A smile that understood what was about to happen. She activated her suit's personal recorder, the black box that might survive, even if nothing else did. And she began to speak. Hannah sealed her helmet and checked the seals one final time. The airlock cycled. She pushed herself out into the void and attached her magnetic grips to the Nexus's surface. It felt organic under her hands, warm, alive. Beginning deployment, she said into her recorder. Her voice was steady. First payload at coordinates marked Alpha. The Nexus stretched before her like a living landscape. She moved across it carefully, each step measured. The Voruum swarm flew overhead, so close she could see individual organisms. But her suit's stealth coating held. She was invisible. A ghost in truth now. The first neural cluster pulsed beneath her feet. She planted the payload and activated it. 6 more to go. She checked her suit's power. 37 minutes remaining. Payload 1 deployed, she said. Moving to coordinates beta. She ran. Not walked, ran, magnetic grips screening against the Nexus's surface. Behind her, the first payload blinked its countdown. 3 minutes. She had 3 minutes for each deployment. 4 sites total. The rest would have to be faster. Second payload. 29 minutes of power left. Third payload. 18 minutes. Fourth payload. 8 minutes. Her suit began warning her. Critical power. Life support compromised. Atmosphere venting. Hannah ignored the alarms and kept moving. Her legs burned. Her lungs screamed. The vacuum was starting to freeze her suit's joints. 5th payload. 2 minutes of power remaining. The 6th neural cluster was a kilometer away. Impossible distance. But Hannah pushed herself forward. 1 step, then another. Her suit died halfway there. No more magnetic grips. No more environmental control. Just forward momentum and desperation. She reached the 6th cluster and planted the payload with numb fingers. Then she looked at the final coordinates. Another kilometer. Her suit had no power. Her oxygen was almost gone. But the timer showed 90 seconds until detonation. Hana pulled herself forward using cracks in the Nexus's surface. Hand over hand. She could feel the cold now. Really feel it. Her fingers were beyond pain. Her vision was narrowing. But she kept moving. 70 seconds, 60 seconds, 50 seconds. She reached the 7th cluster. Planted the payload. Activated it. Then she had a choice. Try to reach the ship or stay here. 40 seconds. The ship was 20 kilometers away. Even at a full sprint with power, she couldn't reach it in time. And she had no power. She had nothing. Hana sat down on the Nexus's surface. She looked up at the swarm moving overhead, at the impossible number of stars in the distance. She had seen so many stars in her 3 years as a ghost, more than most people saw in their entire lives. 30 seconds. She activated her personal recorder one last time. If you're hearing this, the mission succeeded, she said. Her voice was quiet now, tired. Don't mourn, Phantom. We never existed to be mourned. We existed to make sure you could live. 20 seconds. My real name is Ji Woo, she said. It felt strange to say it after 3 years. Like speaking a foreign language. I was born on Earth, Seoul District. I had a sister named Minseo. I joined Ghost Protocol because I wanted to matter. Because I wanted my life to mean something. 10 seconds. I think it did, she said. I think this mattered. 5 seconds. Thank you, Ambassador Deo. Thank you for giving me purpose. Thank you to all the ghosts who flew with me. I hope you find peace. 3 seconds. And to everyone I saved. To all those billions of people who are alive because someone flew into the dark. You're welcome. I'm glad I could help. 1 second. Phantom out. The payloads detonated simultaneously. 7 points of quantum energy erupting across the Nexus. The effect cascaded instantly. Neural pathways overloaded. The hive mind convulsed. And across the galaxy, trillions of Voron ships went dark. Coalition sensors detected the detonation from light years away. The quantum signature was unmistakable. The Nexus was destroyed. The war was over. Ambassador Deo received the report in his office. He sat alone and stared at the confirmation for a long time. Then he opened the sealed file. The one with her real name. With her family. With everything she had been before she became Ghost. He sent a single message to Earth. To an address he had kept for 3 years. Then he deleted the file. She had asked to remain Phantom. He would honor that. 3 days later, Coalition forces swept the detonation site. They found debris, Voron remains, and one object, a flight suit, remarkably intact. The black box inside was still transmitting. They recovered it and played the recording. Every Coalition leader heard it. Every military commander. The message spread across the galaxy in hours. That night, Ambassador Deo stood before the Coalition assembly. He didn't have to call for silence. Everyone was already quiet. Lieutenant Phantom completed her mission, he said. The Vorum hive mind is destroyed. Their forces are fragmenting. The invasion is over. The chamber erupted in celebration. Representatives cheered. Military officers saluted. After 6 months of war, of fear, of watching worlds die, it was finally over. Deo let them celebrate for a moment. Then he raised his hand. Phantom will not be returning, he said. The chamber went silent. She gave her life to save the galaxy, as did 22 other Ghost Protocol pilots. They flew into hell so we could live in the light. He played Ji Woo's final message. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Every word, every breath. The confession of her real name. The simple statement that she wanted to matter. When it ended, HFY War Queen Silicis stood. She performed the highest honor gesture again. "The Chither propose we establish a memorial," she said, "to honor all Ghost Protocol pilots, not by their names, but by what they did." The motion passed unanimously. Within a year, Phantom Protocol became standard coalition military doctrine. Specialist units trained for impossible missions. They used call signs instead of names. They understood that sometimes survival wasn't the goal. Sometimes completion was enough. 40 coalition species established their own versions. The Krell called their Shadow Warriors. The Mindari called their Silent Voices. The Chither called theirs Echo Swarm. All of them based on the same principle. Volunteers who chose to face the impossible. 10 years after the war, the coalition erected a memorial at their headquarters. A simple black stone. No names, just call signs. Phantoms was at the top. Beneath it, an inscription in every coalition language. They gave their names so we could keep ours. They walked into the dark so we could live in the light. Remember them not by who they were, but by what they did. On Earth, in a small coastal cemetery outside Seoul, an elderly woman named Minseo placed flowers on a grave. The headstone was simple. Just a name and dates. Ji-woo, beloved daughter and sister. She wanted to see the stars. Minseo didn't know what her sister had done. The records were sealed. Ambassador Daeho's message had been vague. An accident during training. Honorable death. Standard condolences. But as she stood there, a coalition cruiser passed overhead. Its hull bore a symbol. A ghost outlined in stars. The mark of Phantom Protocol. Minseo looked up at it and smiled slightly. Her sister had always talked about flying. About seeing the galaxy. About mattering. "I hope you found what you were looking for," Minseo said quietly to the grave dot in the depths of space. Ji-woo's flight suit continued its slow orbit through the debris field. The black box kept transmitting. A quiet signal that repeated every hour. Phantom out. The signal was faint. Eventually, it would fade. The power cell would die. The suit would drift into the dark and be forgotten. But for now, it transmitted. A reminder that once, a pilot named Phantom flew into the impossible and won. That once, a girl named Ji-woo gave everything so others could live. Ambassador Daeho visited the memorial every year on the anniversary of the mission. He stood before the black stone and read the call signs. Phantom, Reaper, Eclipse, Blade, 23 names that weren't names. 23 people who had chosen this. He thought about the question Ji-woo had asked him. Whether they were making a mistake. Whether humanity was proving the galaxy right about being violent and self-destructive. He had told her that what they did mattered more than who they were. Standing here now, reading these call signs, he knew it was true. The Ghost Protocol had saved billions of lives. Had ended a war that would have consumed the galaxy. Had proven that humanity belonged among the stars. But the cost. The cost was these 23 pilots who would never come home. Was it worth it? He asked the memorial. The stone offered no answers. But across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, billions of people lived. Draphine children played in reconstructed cities. Chither young grew to adulthood. Krell warriors sang songs of honor. Mindari scholars recorded histories, all of them alive, because ghosts had flown into the dark. Daeho placed his hand on Phantom's call sign and spoke quietly. "Thank you, Ji-woo. I hope wherever you are, you know it mattered. You mattered." He stood there for a long time. Then he left. Behind him, the memorial stood in silence. The call signs catching the light of distant stars. Somewhere in the dark between galaxies, a flight suit drifted through the void. The black box transmitted its message one more time. Phantom out. Then the power cell finally died. The transmission ended. The suit continued its eternal drift into the darkness. But in Coalition headquarters, on 100 worlds, in the hearts of those who remembered, Phantom lived on. Not as a person, not as a name, but as a reminder. When faced with the impossible, someone has to try. Someone has to volunteer. Someone has to fly into the dark. And sometimes, just sometimes, they succeed. The galaxy would never forget that lesson. Would never forget the nameless pilots who taught it to them. Phantom Protocol remained active for the next 100 years. Thousands of pilots served. Hundreds didn't return. But the tradition held. They used call signs. They volunteered for impossible missions. They understood what Ji Woo had understood. Mattering wasn't about glory or recognition. It was about doing what needed to be done. About standing when others couldn't. About flying into the dark so others could live in the light. And at the top of every Phantom Protocol memorial, on every Coalition world, one call sign remained. The first ghost, the one who showed them all how it was done. Phantom. Her name became the galaxy's warning. Not a threat, but a promise. When darkness comes, when hope fades, when the impossible stands before you, remember the pilot who flew alone into hell and saved them all. Remember Phantom. And remember the heroes don't need names to matter. They just need to care enough to try.